Monday, September 24th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, malware. What it is, how not to get it, and how to get rid of it.
Let's do this.
Well, on Friday, we went to a metal concert, though we means everyone but Scott, who stayed home and went to bed.
Other people did not go besides me. How
One other person
How many
did not
people
go.
were there total? In the
of
whole
the group?
in the whole place.
Oh, in the whole place? I don't know, 100?
So you're telling me that everyone, meaning 7 billion, went. No, it was 7 billion minus
All right,
100.
Scott, that was really lame. Out of the front row crew who was coming to our house for the weekend, only 2 people did not attend this concert. And in fact, 2 other people who did not stay for D&D attended this concert.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, but anyway, we went to a Fintroll concert, which is... I'm just going to call it heavy metal because I don't really care much about all the different... Is it hardcore metal? Is it folk, orchestral, gruntal, sub-architect metal? I don't know. I kind of ignore subgenres in music. But anyway, it was a pretty badass concert. Went on real late. It was at the Chance in Poughkeepsie. But something interesting happened well beyond the fact that we got to see Fintroll live. So, any concert like this, a whole bunch of bands will play. And as we learned from the Tool concert we went to back when we were at RIT, sometimes those bands suck. Particularly Fantomas.
Yeah, do we tell that story?
I don't know if we did or not, but I'm just going to skip it.
All right.
If we didn't tell the story, maybe someone will tell us we didn't tell it. But we're at this concert, and a band comes on, and they're okay. I mean, they weren't great, but they weren't terrible, so I'm just, chilling. And then the announcer comes out, or the MC, who's this gigantic, awesome black guy. Is the same guy who was there the last time I went to the Chance. I think he's the owner or something. Or at least he's like the permanent MC.
He's the guy.
He's big and jolly, and he's a really cool guy. He always comes out, and he has funny things to say, and he gets the crowd together, and he's real jovial, and it's cool. And he comes out, and he introduces the next band, and he says, "Now, I want to warn all of you that this band is not exactly metal, but I think you might like them. Seriously, give these guys a chance. This might be up your alley." And he basically just kept saying, check this band out. Give it a chance. This is going to be pretty cool. You're going to like it. And then the band comes out, and they're kind of mediocre. All right. They say Jesus a lot, and we're debating with each other, are they a Christian metal band? Or are they just being ironic about it? Because I couldn't understand.
Christian bands, why would they come there? Don't they usually stick together?
Well, no, it wouldn't have mattered.
Plus isn't Fintroll like pagan?
Well, that's the thing. We're not sure if it's a Christian band, and we're leaning toward no, because Fintroll, the thing about Fintroll is they're basically a pagan band. When Fintroll came out on the stage after their first song, they basically said, "How do you feel about Christians?" And the crowd is like, "Rah!" It was like, "Tonight, we will have a song about how to enjoy Christians by cooking them." And they're like super anti-Christian. It's kind of funny. But so we're debating, is this band Christian? And they kept saying Jesus, but whatever. I think they could have been saying something bad about him. We couldn't tell. It was metal. It was blah, 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 Jesus, blah, blah, Jesus, blah. Then he made a pose, the main singer, of someone being crucified. And he was not being ironic. About the 4th or 5th time he did that, we started to suspect. And then the last song they played was entitled, Yay God.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, they were Christian metal, which independent of that, they were pretty crappy. All their songs sounded the same. And the worst thing is the guy was dancing on stage. It was as though he had read a book on how to dance on stage, but he did it technically very well, but it just ended up looking really, really stupid and forced. And the crowd was basically just standing there ignoring him. And he came over, he's trying to clap and get the crowd to clap. And the people in the front are just kind of staring at him with this look of, what the fuck are you trying to get me to do? At one point he starts singing right in the face of this girl who's just looking at him like, you've got to be kidding me. And then he puts his hand in her face like blah, blah, blah. And she moves to bite him. And he backs off like shit. Because it was a metal concert.
Yep.
So, the band gets off the stage, and another band plays, Lazarus, which was fucking awesome, and then another band plays, and they're kind of mediocre, and before Fintroll comes out, the cool MC comes out, and he has a few words to say. I'm gonna paraphrase, but he basically says to us, now, apparently, Black Star Incorporated, which is the crappy Christian metal band that played, thought that I somehow disrespected them by saying that they were in a metal band. And the crowd starts to yell, but he says, well, I'll get into that. I'll get to that. So I have a message, and I'd like to say a few words about Black Star Incorporated and how I may or may not have introduced them and the level of respect involved. Fuck you, Black Star Inc. Fuck you, goddamn pussies. Your music sucked. You were one of the worst bands that has ever played at the Chance. And the fact that I didn't disrespect you. You're not a metal band, and I warned the audience that. The audience doesn't hate you because I told them you weren't metal. The audience hated you because you sucked ass. I hope you're still here so you can leave in shame. Fuck your parents, fuck your uncles, and anyone who was here to see you. So without further ado, Fintroll. It was quite hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, a guy who runs a small place like that, he doesn't have anything to lose.
He doesn't answer to anyone.
Yeah, he doesn't have anything to lose by insulting some crap band that probably didn't bring... No one came there to see Black Star Incorporated,
And bear in
right?
mind, I am not saying, they sucked because they were Christian metal.
And all that does
Granted,
is
I've never heard Christian rock that was good, but if anyone can find me some, I'll give it a go. The band, independently of being Christian metal, was just really crappy.
Yeah, but think about it. He knows the customers here. That's the kind of thing to make the customers like him and come back.
Yep, I'll go back. Of course, I like the Chance. The 2 concerts I've been to there have been about what I expected. Kind of awesome.
That's how small places like that are. They're all kind of cool. If they're not kind of cool, they're not around anymore.
Sadly, I forgot to bring jeans with me to work, so when I took the train up to the concert, I ended up going to this metal concert wearing white pressed dress pants and black dress shoes.
Yeah,
and a collared shirt.
That's one problem I always have at concerts is I want to be in the concert with nothing but jeans and a t-shirt, right? But
I remember at Tool, they even took away your carabiner.
Yeah, but it's like that's all I want to have on me. The problem is I got to have my keys to get back to my car, possibly my wallet, maybe a ticket or something. It's like I have to have this stuff but there's nowhere to put it. But I don't want to have it. I just want to be wearing jeans and a t-shirt, nothing else. And it's very difficult.
Luckily, Alex drove to work because we didn't want to take the train home late at night. In fact, I think the last train would have been after the concert ended. So I just left all my crap in his car. I went in there with my wallet so that I could buy booze.
Yeah. And in my defense for not going, I mean, first of all...
he was tired. I mean, he had a whole day of shoe shopping, and he was just exhausted.
What's with you people? Freaking... I got home. I would have had to leave immediately for the concert with no time at home, and I had stuff to do, and I was tired. And I had seen Fintroll on YouTube, and was not so impressed. So,
I was impressed. I really liked Fintroll. Granted, I'll admit I liked Lazarus more because they were Lazarus was very much the kind of standard 80s, early 90s metal that I really, really liked.
Yeah, but given a choice between driving 20 minutes to Poughkeepsie, staying there for hours and hours and hours, driving 20 minutes back, and going to bed at 2 a.m. or...
Well, to speak in Scott's defense, too, I was at a heavy metal concert, and the band that played before Fintroll, I fell asleep during it because I was so tired.
There you go.
Emily and I both just kind of fell asleep, and then I realized the irony of that the next day. I hope that the band...
As I awoke and everyone in the house is sleeping.
I just hope that the band that was playing didn't see me, because that would really have to be a kick in the balls. If you're playing at a metal concert and you're on stage, and there's some dude and a girl next to him asleep.
Yeah. But I mean, seriously, though, I woke up 3 hours before everyone else on Saturday and did a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I was exhausted. Though I do also want to say that I have, and so does Scott, and most of us in the crew have semi-expensive, super awesome musicians' earplugs that they reduce the...
They're not expensive, $14.
Compared to normal earplugs, which are 50 cents.
Are they really?
Yeah, you can buy a sack of normal earplugs at Home Depot for nothing.
Let's see how much they actually cost. Hold on. Ooh, they have new versions for small ear canals.
Ah. Well, we talk about isolation earbuds. These are kind of the same thing, but they're specifically made for playing in or being at concerts, in that they reduce the volume overall, 10, 20, how many decibels you want, but they do it evenly. So if you wear normal foam orange earplugs, the music sounds kind of crappy. But if you don't wear earplugs, you do fantastic amounts of damage to your hearing in short order. And by the time the band you actually went to see plays, because they always play last, your ears are fatigued and you usually feel like shit, unless you're already half deaf from going to concerts.
They're $12. And yeah, going to just one concert without earplugs will do permanent damage to your hearing.
Yes.
Period. End of story.
And I've been to 3 concerts.
I guess if you went to some classical music, maybe not. But
It
even
depends on the
if you're
classical
sitting
music.
real close and there's a full orchestra Where's some fucking earplugs?
Dude,
Goddamn.
in fact, I'll even say I played in bands in high school. Not just like in the high school, but I played trumpet in a few
Especially if
local
they
bands
have
and
horned
stuff.
instruments.
Playing in a band will fuck your hearing up pretty quickly, and I do have a minor amount of hearing loss right about in the range where my trumpet was.
It happens.
But the fact that several of our friends were at this concert without earplugs was quite disturbing to me, to be honest. Because I was wearing the super fancy head.
I wear earplugs in like dealers' rooms at conventions.
Yep. I wear earplugs on the train. I wear earplugs on the subway. A lot of times if I'm driving, I'll wear them.
Yep. Well, driving not so safe.
Well, it's okay, because remember, these aren't no sound at all. These are all sound is attenuated by, I think, 15 decibels.
I think it's 20.
I
You can get 30 decibel ones if you want, but
You
the
can
ones
also get, like-
we have are 20.
You can also get like 5 decibel ones.
Yeah,
You
those
can
would be
pick-
okay for driving.
You can pick the amount of attenuation you want.
Yeah, but the ones they sell, the ones that I'm talking about, are $12 and they're 20s.
Yeah,
So-
they're totally worth it. If you go to more than one concert in your life, buy a pair of these.
Yeah, they come in little thingies, so you can carry them around with you
The
everywhere
music
you go.
will sound better because your ears won't get fatigued and you won't get a headache.
It's kind of funny, like if you go to a concert and they just start up, like a metal concert especially, right? They start it up, and if you try to listen, it's just right, and you put the earplugs in, and suddenly it sounds like their album is playing, and you're like, oh man,
It's so awesome.
yeah. All right,
Right.
news.
Oh, yeah, you got some news for us being Monday night?
I do. As far as I'm concerned, right, there are 2 types of personal computers for normal people in their houses, home users.
Not 10 types?
No, 2 types.
10?
2. Yes. The 2 types are, number 1, the completely normal computer for like your mom who wants to browse the web and do normal email and IM and normal stuff. And then there's the serious machine for someone who wants to play games and Photoshop and edit videos.
I are serious cat and my computer are serious business.
Yes, there are 2 types of computers for home users. At any one moment in time, there is a best computer for the normal person and a best computer for the crazy person in terms of price. I mean, in terms of performance, $10,000 is always the winner.
Yeah.
But in terms of price performance ratio, there is always one sweet spot for each machine. And until now, the normal computer for normal people in terms of a PC that you build has been an AMD machine because and if you buy, you can go out to Newegg and buy an NVidia, well, not the motherboard won't be made by NVIDIA, but a motherboard with NVIDIA chips all over it that for like $100 contains a video card, a sound card, a network card, everything except pretty much the RAM, the CPU, and a hard drive.
Now, think about that. If you have a computer that's just surfing the web and whatever, that's everything you need except the actual processor and RAM.
Yeah, they have NVIDIA because they make the Enforce chips and all this other stuff. The Enforce chips is like a whole computer almost on 2 chips except for the CPU and RAM.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people, especially people our age who kind of grew up during the only way to build a usable computer is to build it yourself. Because there was a time when to make a powerful computer, that was really the only way to make something that was reasonably priced.
Yep.
The common wisdom was onboard components are shit. Usually because of the previous issues with that, with the Win modems.
Yeah, well,
And that sort of
most Win
problem.
modems are like ISA modems. But
Yeah,
that's-
but like just that sort of thing. Like embedded components were crap. Embedded sound cards just were shitty, and embedded video cards were slow. But nowadays, unless you're podcasting or something, an onboard sound card, no matter who made it, is more than enough and totally perfect, and you will not be able to hear the
Because
difference.
most 99% of people just need to hear stereo sound, and an onboard sound card will do that with no hit to your performance.
Yep, sound card technology, in terms of making the audio sound good for consumers, has not, other than fancy stuff like surround sound or whatever, in terms of playing stereo audio, has not significantly improved in like 8 years.
All right, so, every other component is the same way. Most people just want to look at 2D imagery. An onboard video card does that now. Most people just want to get a network connection. An onboard NIC does that now. So what do you care if it's on board or not? So the cheapest way to get a computer for like your mom to just browse the web was to get an NVIDIA Enforce IGP, which is, most Enforces don't have IGP, which means you still need to go out and get a video card separately and put it in your AGP or PCI Express X16 slot. But if you get an IGP, there's a video card built in to your Northbridge, which is like, well, I don't have to buy a video card. That saves you so much money. I'm buying the computer. You can't say no if you don't need 3D. In fact, it does 3D, weak 3D pretty well. You could probably play like Half-Life 1 with one of those things.
Oh, you could easily play. Half-Life 1 requires
You could,
dick all.
you could definitely play Quake 1 and 2 with, you won't get like 60 FPS constantly, but you could play reasonably with one, all right? So, the problem here for Intel has been that if you want to get an Intel chip instead of an AMD chip, and you don't want to spend a lot on the computer, that's going to be troublesome because you're going to have to get some sort of Intel motherboard with an Intel video card on board, and it's more expensive. But NVidia, the news is this, that NVidia has said they're going to make an Enforce chip with the IGP for Intel. So now, the cheapest and best computer for your mom might not be AMD when NVIDIA gets this stuff rolling.
Man, Intel has just been wrecking AMD left and right.
I don't know, because AMD's actually hitting back. There's like the new quad-core Opteron thingies are supposedly like the shit.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, the next iteration of the Core 2 and all those is supposedly going to be the same super efficient architecture, but ramped up another gigahertz
It could be, but at the moment, I think if I remember what people were saying, you could get one of these like quad-core Opterons for like a few $100s, which is like a ludicrous price for like the best chip out there. So
yeah, well, the problem, it's hard to say because Intel and AMD compete with each other, but they compete with each other in two completely separate arenas: the home user PC and the enterprise server PC.
There's also the laptop arena, which
the third arena. I forgot
which
about
Intel
that.
has been completely dominating.
Well,
In terms of consumers and PCs, they also compete in other areas that you don't notice because you're just
as
a
far as
consumer.
you care about. It's those three, and well, Intel has almost always had the advantage on power consumption, which is why they always win the laptop war. I mean, especially back in the day, like in the AMD K7 era, an AMD laptop was perhaps the most laughable idea in the world.
Yeah, pretty not so good.
Granted, they were cheap, but the battery lasted like 5 minutes.
Yep. All right.
Right. So I find this very interesting, and I guess it was kind of expected, but according to this article on Slashdot, Linux is going to be installed at every single school in Russia by 2009. That they're generally trying to just give up on Windows and outfit all their schools with PCs and servers and all the IT stuff they need running Linux.
Someone must actually be thinking about something there.
Well, there's a lot of speculation, both by me and people onto internet, as to why this is the case. And I think I'm not going to bother with the article. I'm just going to break it down as to why I think.
Someone in a position of power to make a decision was convinced by someone intelligent.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, like actual direct reasons, as in the cause and effects. Think of this. It used to be that a lot of developing countries, or even developed or mostly developed countries, they used Windows because they just pirated it, and Microsoft couldn't really do anything about it. I mean, Microsoft couldn't really tell Russia to stop Russians from pirating because they had no leverage. And the same thing with China and India and all these countries. But as these countries become more and more quote-unquote legitimate in the world marketplace and start competing like actually for serious, for real in the marketplace, there are international agencies and regulations and law enforcement bodies and organizations that can do bad things and trade sanctions and all that sort of thing to a country like Russia if they continue to allow software piracy to happen. And the more legitimate the economies of these countries get in terms of a modern international market, the more pressure is on them to not allow piracy. And Russia, being somewhat smart, must have realized that, hey, we were only using Windows because it was free. Now that we have to pay for it, why don't we just use Linux because it's free?
Yeah, that's obviously a logical thing, but, who knows what actual bureaucratic process ended in this decision. All those things make sense.
In Russia, unlike in, say, the United States, the government or whatever bodies control different arms of the government have a lot more power to just say, this is the way you're doing it, fuck you.
Yep.
So if someone higher up says, all right, why don't we standardize the country on X because it'll be cheaper overall and we can standardize on support and blah, 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 they can just force people to. But in America, it's really hard to force companies or public institutions to do anything.
It sure is.
And in the end, I think this is going to be a good thing because...
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
One of the primary reasons that Windows has a large user base among people who are into technology is just that it's the OS they used first. Because if you use any UI or any OS first, that's going to be the one you're comfortable with. And a lot of people really don't understand their computer enough to be able to understand that doing this in this operating system is analogous to
Russians
doing this.
understand. All the hackers come from Russia.
But if you start on Linux, you'll be more likely to use Linux.
Yeah.
Just in general, because I can't say
That's
that.
why in the early days, Apple pushed their Apple IIs and their Macs into the schools so heavily. But, and it wasn't until later that, Windows dominated the business world that schools switched, not because the Apples and the Macs were no good, but because they realized that with the kids using the Apples and the Macs weren't being prepared for the business world where Windows was the winner. So that's, it eventually came down from the top, into the colleges, then the high schools and the middle schools, and then the elementary schools pushing out the Apples.
Yep.
But originally it was the Apples because Steve Jobs and they pushed it in there really hard, knowing that was going to help them. And it kind of did. I mean, you have people who, when they were kids, played the Oregon Trail on their Apples, and nowadays they're buying iPods and using their MacBooks.
Now, I'm not going to make the argument that using Linux instead of Windows will make these kids better at using computers, because it's really not the case. What is going to happen is they're just going to be used to using Linux, and most people, no matter how educated they are, just are never going to understand exactly how their computers work. They're going to understand how to make the computer they use do what they want to do.
Though I do think that in Russia, a greater percentage of people understand, because Russia seems to have a lot of a larger, or at least from my perspective, with my feel from what
I don't know.
there
I don't
seem to be
think
a
I
lot
agree with
more
that.
hackers and those types in the
I would
Russia.
argue that the only reason that is true is because the laws are a lot more lax in Russia, and
It
it's a
could
lot
be.
easier to get away with that stuff.
It could be, but Russia has all sorts of things coming out of it, like the all of MP3s and such.
Well, that's just because the copyright laws are different there. How many people who are quote-unquote Russian hackers are actually U.S. people just working with Russian people because they don't want to get caught?
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
It could be.
Of course, granted, maybe this kind of gray market, black market culture has facilitated people. Facilitated
That's what I'm
this
saying.
kind
Is
of,
when the kids are all wearing, they're learning too. They go from script kiddie to a kid who actually knows.
I guess you could have a point, because I think back to when the U.S. was still the wild, wild west, and much of what I learned about computers, I learned from being in that wares scene and trying to hack and crack and all it. Yeah.
Yep.
Things of the day. Now, last week I talked about Captain Don't Tase Me Bro and how he totally deserved to be tased.
Don't tase me, bro.
Don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me, bro. Ah! Well, of course the internet responded, and like the internet does, there were a whole bunch of mashups. I think there was one on Dig that was just MC Hammer dancing, but every time he would have said, "Can't touch this," it cut to the guy saying, "Don't tase me." And, things like that.
Don't tase me.
Of all of those, there's one that stood out, and I award it the Lateral Thinking Mashup Award of the Week.
Alrighty.
I don't think this will be a regular thing. It is basically, you could just watch the video, but in case you don't want to, it's just that scene from Star Wars where the Emperor shocks the ever-living shit out of Luke, and all it does is dub over Luke's dialogue with, "Don't tase me, bro! Don't tase me, bro! Seriously! Ah! Ah!"
Only now, at the end,
Do you
come
understand?
to understand.
It's too perfect. In general, it seems like there's sort of this, like, people talk about lateral thinking and lateral thinking puzzles where, like, how do you get out of the room if the doors are all locked and blah, 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 and the answer is something weird, kind of like a Buddhist riddle or a cone or anything
How do you
like
make
that.
a mashup out of Don't Tase Me, bro, that'll make all the nerds laugh? Star Wars, there's the one.
Well, it seems like internet people, particularly Farkers and 4chaners, there's all those different cultures on the internet. There are connections between events that happen and various things in popular culture and it's perfectly obvious to the internet person who thinks of it. They see a video of a guy being tasered, and the first thing they think is, that's just like when the Emperor tasered Luke. I'm gonna make that mashup. Well, normal people, they don't think sideways like that. The thought wouldn't have even crossed their mind.
But if they see it, they go, "Oh shit! Oh man!"
I feel like YouTube and Fark and 4chan and Something Awful and all these places, internet culture, they're kind of fostering this environment where the lateral thinking is rewarded. And I'm really curious to see how that is going to affect art and literature over the next decade. I think it's actually going to be a significant movement, possibly in a bad direction.
Yeah, I think the problem though with lateral thinking is that forward thinking suffers.
That was very aptly put. You get a golf clap.
All right. So You know, a rice paddy, right? You ever seen a rice paddy?
You mean a place where rice is grown?
Yeah, you know how it's arranged, like the rice is all in rows.
Yeah.
Right? Have you ever seen the actual rice plant?
I've seen pictures of them on like Wikipedia.
Yeah. What's it look like?
Looks like a plant in water.
Yeah. So, you know, there's different kinds of rice, right?
Yeah, there's like jasmine rice and brown rice and various other rices.
Well, did you know that
Honda Civic.
Yep. Well, you know the red rice, you know, the leaves of the red rice plant, they're sort of dark. And the leaves of the normal rice plant, they're sort of green. So what if you are planting rice in these rows and you strategically place red rice and normal green rice in such a way that from above, your rice paddy looks like something because you have multiple colors to work with.
I think if someone did that, that'd be pretty damn cool. I wonder if anyone's done anything like that.
Gee, I wonder what all these pictures of people who have done that are, huh? How interesting are these pictures from, like, helicopters of rice paddies with pictures on them? They're actually, like, you think, oh, okay, someone, you know, wrote something in the rice paddy or made a picture. You know, it'll be about the quality of, say, like a crop circle. This is way better quality than you think it is. Rice is a small plant, high-resolution imagery, and lots of, like, you know, bored Japanese people who have got a lot of time on their hands to get it just right. And they do it every year. They've had practice, and they've got all season to wait for it to grow, so they're not going to screw it up when they plant it.
Wow, so a crappy, somewhat poorly done crop circle. Obviously, no human technology could create that, and it had to have been done by an advanced alien race. Yet
this
high-resolution rice images, piece of cake. Huh.
Yes, this high-resolution picture of, like, a geisha that appears from the sky in a rice paddy.
Huh.
Yeah.
Funny that.
Made by aliens. They came down with their laser guns and drew it in the rice in Japan by changing the colors of the leaves.
I saw this one
Perfectly reasonable
documentary
explanation.
as a kid where there was a crop circle, and the crop circle expert was like, see how these are bent? There's no way you could do that without
And then
something...
a guy took a stick and a rope and made the...
No, not even that.
Oh, I
It
saw
cut
the
to
one
an-
with the stick and the rope.
It was like that, but it was the guy as an expert, and he just took a stalk and he bent it, like, right in front of the guy, and it looked exactly the same.
Yep.
And the guy was like, well, it's different.
No, the
Because,
one
no,
I
is it-
saw was like, oh, they were like, look, see how it's in a spiral, right? So the guy's like, huh, that is kind of strange. It's in a spiral. If something landed on it from above, it would just been flattened straight down instead of in a spiral. So it had to be some sort of spinning alien ship, right? So some other guy goes, and he takes a stick and a rope, and he sort of holds onto the rope and puts the stick under his foot, and he walks. He starts somewhere in the crop, and he just starts walking in a circle, crushing the corn with the stick on his foot, and it makes a spiral circle of crushed corn.
I think the moral is anyone who thinks crop circles are made by aliens is stupid.
Yep.
Yep.
And anyone who thinks high-resolution rice paddy images are made by
Now,
people in America is
What we-
stupid.
what
Because
we
only
need-
Japanese people can do
I
this.
think the only logical conclusion of this is to make a rice paddy representation of a Honda Civic, thus blowing up the earth out of sheer...
I think we need to make a rice paddy image of the Emperor shocking some guy.
well,
The Death Star, Star
Just
Destroyer, Goatsy rice paddy. Oh my God! No, we just need a picture of a plain rice paddy, and then we need to Photoshop it.
That could be, but I'd rather have the permanent... Well, not permanent, I guess, because the rice isn't going to be there forever.
Yep.
Right. So tonight, I realize this is a topic a lot of people ask us about. You know, they get some spyware on their machine or something's wrong with their computer, and they ask us, Rip and Scott, how can I get rid of this virus? And how can I not get viruses in the future? And no one seems to understand what viruses and Trojans and all those things actually are. And even worse, people don't seem to like the answers we give.
No, they don't seem to like the answers. You want to talk about what they are first, or want to talk about what to do
well,
first?
I think the purpose of this episode very specifically is to prevent more people from emailing us the same questions over and over again.
All right, cool. All right, so first question. What is... Well, I think the biggest... See, the problem is with definitions of words like virus and Trojan and malware and spyware is that there's some of them are subsets of others, some of them are not the same as others, and there's quite a bit of... It's not like big disagreements, like everyone sort of generally agrees what they are, but there's not like this firm, this means this means that.
Yeah, we're going to give a broad overview.
Yeah, I'm going to mostly give you what I think, slightly combined with what Wikipedia thinks at the current moment in time. So... The first one, I think the largest category personally is malware.
Yes, I mean, people say, oh, spyware, whateverware. I think it all is classified as malware.
Yeah, I mean,
in the end.
malware. Mal is bad, Latin root. Ware, software. If you have some sort of software that is bad, be it spyware, a virus, a Trojan, a worm, it's all malware. It's all badware. Simple as that. Okay?
I just couldn't help thinking like malware wolf and
Malware wolf. Plus some lateral thinking you got going on
I
there.
do believe that the word ware originally was a root that meant man. So theoretically, malware could you are very malware.
It could
Mr.
be
Seinfeld, very
it could
malware.
be a lichen
Very bad man.
throw. I'm trying to combine lycanthrope and virus. It's not working. Anyway. So the next thing,
We should define malware how I would define malware, just straight up. I mean, you obviously probably think, oh, I know what malware is any code that is on a PC that does things that the owner of the PC would not intend it or know about it doing.
yeah, anything that's bad, anything you don't want.
Yeah, I consider DRM to be malware.
Oh yeah, definitely, anything. Yep. All right. So a virus, I sort of say that viruses is pretty much everything but like spyware. It's sort of like first thing about a virus that makes it different from say spyware is that you didn't put it there. It got put there on it. It doesn't announce its presence. It's not like you see it.
Yep, viruses are the oldest form of this sort of thing.
Yeah. A virus will be like, you got an infected file and it attached itself somewhere and it's running and doing things without you knowing, perhaps replicating itself. In fact, some people say it must replicate itself for it to be a virus, and it spreads to other files and it infects.
I wrote a few very weak viruses when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Mostly to steal documents from my friends.
Yeah. Examples of viruses would be like that Michelangelo virus.
Yep, or Form, or the Ogre, or
the Ogre.
Cookie Monster. That was a real virus.
Jabberwocky.
Yep. And a lot of them are really kind of benign and funny, and a lot of them are really, really bad, like the Ogre, which just encrypted your hard drive.
Yeah. But it's basically a program that's probably doing something evil. It spreads around from file to file generally, and you didn't put it there. It sort of crept in somehow usually. Maybe on a floppy disk or on a CD, or you downloaded something and it was infected, or someone gave it to you, or who knows. So a worm. A worm is kind of similar to a virus. It's a little hidden thing. You didn't even know it's there, and it's doing bad stuff. But worms specifically replicate over the network, and you don't have to do anything. If your computer just plugged into a network, a worm can just walk right in. Like, what was that one that happened when you were at IT that was huge? Like the Nachi or the...
I don't even remember, because it's not a concern to me anymore, to be honest.
But it basically how that worm spread is Windows has a security vulnerability in it, and you could send some packets to a Windows machine that was not patched, and if you sent those packets to the Windows machine properly, the Windows machine would open itself up, move some bits around on its hard drive, and thus cause it to do some bad things, as well as begin spreading this virus to the worm to other Windows machines.
This is a big deal because standard viruses and Trojans and things, they can't really spread themselves. An idiot has to spread them, but a worm can get you without you doing anything stupid.
You could just have a computer, brand new from Dell, say, right? Windows installed, Windows patched all the way, and if there is a vulnerability to some sort of worm on that, in Windows at the current time, and you just plug it into a network, and another computer on that network is spreading the worm, you got it. It's on there, and now you're spreading the worm. I mean, a worm... The thing is with a worm, even if it doesn't do anything bad to your computer, it takes up network bandwidth. It's automatically bad no matter what.
Well, and it'll probably eventually, especially now with the current culture of hackers out there, or crackers, yeah, is that you'll be spamming people with Viagra.
Probably. But yeah, most worms just infect your computer, and then most worms and viruses and everything these days, the vast majority of them try to turn your computer into a spam-sending machine. So, all right. I guess the other one we could talk about is a Trojan. A Trojan is a Trojan. is a lot like, I don't know why I was saying Trojan, is a lot like, well, a Trojan horse from the Greek story of old where, a wooden bunny is driven up.
You get an email
to your gate.
from your mom's aunt's sister's uncle's friend's nephew's cousin, and it says, hey, check out this funny Flash video, file.exe. So you double click on it and you see a funny Flash video. Well, that funny Flash video executable was, 400K of Flash followed by 4 megabytes of malware.
Yeah, it's, you go and someone gives you something or someone appears to be giving you something that disguises itself as a picture or a video game or something. And you click on it and you say, yes, 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 yes. And you've just opened a horse and a whole bunch of Greeks jumped out and stabbed you.
Right, but that's enough of that because we've talked about some of these things before. I think
that about covers it. Oh, spyware is the only one left we had to say something about.
Yeah,
spyware is sort of it's a piece of software, usually free, and you went and you got it. You knew what you were getting. Like, hey, I need a video player. There's a video player. I will download this video player and install it. And sure enough, it plays video. Maybe not well, but it's a program that does what you thought. Like Bonsai Buddy, right? It gives you a little funny Bonsai Buddy on your desktop.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's also looking at information on your computer and sending it to someone else far away so that they can make money off of you.
I mean, Gator did whatever it claimed to do. I don't even know.
I think it helped you remember passwords or something.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But the deal with these is that if you actually read all what it tells you when you install it, they don't pretend at all. I mean, it's like, we are going to take your data and do this and this and this.
We're also probably going to use your CPU cycles to conduct evil business, maybe.
And while it's shady, you agreed to it. You put it on there.
Yeah,
it's all
some
you.
things don't say they're spyware. Like, it's not obvious that it's spyware.
You, almost in that case, you wouldn't call it spyware. You just call it a virus, straight up.
It's sort of difficult to always, to really accurately label, large groups of malware because, there's two components to any malware, and that is the vector and what it is. You could have... the worm has the network as the vector, but once it's installed, it's kind of like a virus. Or, spyware is like using a Trojan vector, but once it's installed, you just installed software that had a Trojan-style vector of infection.
Before we get to the next part, which I think is the part you all want to hear about, I would like to say one thing, and this is kind of important. The plural of the word virus is viruses.
Really?
Straight up,
it's not viri?
No, it is not viri.
I gotta look this up now.
I am 100%. I'll bet you 1,000. Well, actually, it's more complicated than that because the word virus really doesn't have a plural, and it never did because the original word, I think it meant venom or
All right,
something.
according to the Wikipedia, in the English language, the standard plural of virus is... viruses, the most frequently occurring form of the plural, and refers to both a biological virus and a computer virus.
Well,
the less frequent variations, viri and viri,
are wrong because the word viri means man or vitality
are
or something.
virtually unknown in edited prose, and no major dictionary recognizes them as alternative forms.
The reason is Latin had many more I'm not going to get into this because it's complicated if you don't know about language at all, but basically Latin had a lot more ways of writing words or declining words or conjugating words, things like that. So you had a lot of different ways you could write the same word depending on the context it was being used. And there were different rules depending on the root word as to how you pluralize things or past tense things.
I like how I made the word
I made the phrase past tense a verb.
I like how alumnus becomes alumni, so virus you think it would become viri.
But no, virus isn't the same root.
Nope. But you know what? Sheep becomes sheepi.
Yeah, basically, the plural is virus, and this was drilled into my head
viruses.
By a computer. Yeah, viruses. Of virus. This was drilled into my head by more than one professor at RIT continuously, and it's kind of a pet peeve of mine. And while you can argue about a lot of other words, there is really no academic source in the world and no credible source in the world that pluralizes virus as viri.
Yep, it's viruses. So,
the important thing about this episode is what we're going to talk about next, though, because this is what you want to hear, and this is what people ask us the most. The second part of this is how do I get rid of them.
We're mostly going to be repeating one sentence over and over again.
Yeah, first and foremost, how do you protect yourself from viruses? We're not going to talk about the history. We're not going to talk about the past. We're going to talk about right now, today, how do you avoid viruses?
Step one, you need either a software firewall of some sort on your machine or some sort of network level protection, a NAT router, just a normal router that you buy at the store, a Linksys router. If you plug it in and use it and you get a connection, by default, it is protecting you. You cannot get a worm if you are using a router unless someone else in your house is spreading the worm.
Well, there is an exception to that. If you have that plug and play whatever that'll automatically.
Do not enable universal plug and play. Do not enable UPnP. Do not turn that on.
Yes, that is theoretically useful, but what it actually does is lets your computer, if it gets compromised at all, or if your router gets compromised, a virus or a worm could just open up your router and let stuff through.
Yeah, see, the purpose of UPnP, you know how we always talk about port forwarding and how you have to kind of like figure out what ports to enable, and it's kind of tricky.
UPnP does that automatically.
UPnP basically makes it so that, let's say iTunes wants to open up a port so it can do something, it lets it be smart enough to do it on its own. BitTorrent actually uses UPnP. And you don't have to do you don't have to figure out the port forwarding to make
Granted,
BitTorrent
for
do
most
its thing.
things, you don't need to forward ports at all because the way NAT works, almost anything a normal person is going to do on a PC does not require port forwarding. The NAT just works.
So don't enable UPnP unless you really know what you're doing.
And don't enable port forwarding unless you know what you're doing and why.
And then if you do those things and you have a router or a software firewall like the Zone Alarm or something, no one can get you with a worm unless they bring the worm into your house on like a laptop or something.
Right, so you might say, well, Raymond Scott, that's well and good, but how do I avoid getting spyware and malware and viruses and everything else? And the answer is, and I can't stress this enough, don't use Internet Explorer, which will shield you already from like 80% of what's out there.
Yep.
And 2, don't click on shit if you don't know what it is.
Don't trust anything.
If your mom sends you a file, don't open it.
Yep.
Unless it's a picture.
If you are looking for like, say, an image editing program or something, maybe that's a bad example. Let's say you're looking for an MP3 playing program. You just want to try a new one, right? So you go out onto the internet and you find a new one. Unless you can confirm without any doubts that it is not spyware, do not download it. Assume everything is spyware. Assume if you go on Pirate Bay and there's a pirated version of a game, assume that it's full of viruses until proven otherwise.
And you know what? The answer is it almost always is full of viruses.
If you're going to download a movie on BitTorrent, assume it's full of viruses.
Well, here's the thing. The real answer is do not execute any file, executable or not, that you get from the internet from an untrusted source. Some files don't need to be executed, and because software is robust, it's very difficult for looking at a JPEG file or looking at a normal
But it's
image
happened.
file.
There were bugs with like WMF files. And there were stuff like that.
But things like that are pretty rare, and you can avoid 98% of viruses if you just don't run exe files or bin files or .scr files
or .bat or .com files.
Yep. Luckily .bat, you can just open it and look at what it's doing.
I know, but most people won't understand it. They'll open it up and it'll be the same gibberish they'll get if they open up an exe file.
Yep.
Notepad.
But 2, I mean, if you go to a website and you're using IE, there are a lot of exploits, especially for pre-7 versions of IE, where you don't have to click on anything and you'll just be infected because you went to the website.
Yep. Even so, whenever you're browsing the web, even with Firefox, even with IE7, even with Opera, right? And you go to a website and it says, would you like to do something? Yes, no. Unless you are 1020% sure that you're at the absolute correct website and that you want to do what it is asking you to do and you know what it's about to do, say no, always. Never say yes unless you are 1,000,000% sure. Because if you say yes, and it's going to just start doing something evil, and then you're done. Game over.
Yep. And that's it. It's just don't use IE, have a NAT firewall, don't go to shady sites and download things and then run them.
Yeah, don't go to shady websites, period. I mean,
if someone
safe, Google, safe. LeetDudesWares.com, not safe. Don't go there. Don't do anything there. Don't trust anything.
And if you're going to go there, at least use Firefox or something. Hopefully don't not being on Windows is a huge help. But even if you're on Windows, you'll be reasonably safe if you use Firefox or the equivalent, and you're generally canny about what you click and don't click on.
Yeah. If you are smart and you don't trust, if you are untrust giving enough, and you are so good, like me, that you never install anything stupid, you do not need an antivirus program. They're just going to waste your system resources. An antivirus program can only help you if you're stupid and you try to install viruses, and then it will tell you that you were stupid.
They're useful if you gave this computer to your mom.
No, that's also useful, yes. But if you are smart and you do not let shit get on your computer, like I'm using Windows a lot lately to play Team Fortress 2, so I'm browsing the web on it and I'm IMing on it and stuff like that, right? No problems, no antivirus. I'm behind a NAT router, so a worm can't get in. And I keep the computer up to date. I always do all the Windows updates on Black Tuesday. And I don't click on stupid shit. And so far, the computer's like new as far as Windows is concerned.
I have had 3 viruses or malwares in my entire life. The first one was the Form virus that I got from a diskette that I borrowed from someone in Starbase when I was in middle school.
Wow.
And you know what? Once I realized I had it, I didn't get rid of it because it didn't do anything bad. And I started collecting viruses as a result. And somewhere I still have a bunch of floppy disks with old like DOS viruses.
Yep.
The second one I got was, I don't even remember, but I remember I got a virus at some point. It was like in the early days of spyware. And the third one I got was when I rebuilt this new computer. I installed Windows and downloaded a bunch of wares as a test. I determined that every single piece of pirated software I downloaded contained viruses, and then I reformatted and reinstalled Windows.
The only time I ever got a virus and knew about it was back in the days, like I guess like 2002, 3-ish, when like the crazy worms were going around the internet fucking everything up. Like,
oh yeah,
the Nazi and everything, right? Coincidentally, at that time, without even me thinking about it, right? We were at RIT, obviously. I rebuilt my computer because it was just that time. You know, I was doing it. So I reinstalled Windows, I connected to the network, and I started doing Windows updates pretty much immediately. But the crazy worm was spreading around the network so fast at
in
RIT.
the time between when Scott rebooted after installing Windows and when he clicked Windows Update to get the patch, he was already infected.
And then, like, the next day, RIT kicked me off the network because I was spreading the worm, and I was
because RIT is smart. It'll go too long for this
But I didn't
show.
even realize I had it. It was so fast. I was
Yeah.
like, there was no way I could have gotten it that fast. No, I got it that fast.
It's too much for this show, but in a future show some months from now, we'll probably do one on like corporate security and corporate virus dealing, because it's a whole different ballgame in that world. But
Yep.
RIT is one of the few entities that is smart about it.
So if you're not dumb, nothing can happen to your computer. And if you are dumb, you need an antivirus to back you up when you're dumb. But even then, it's not going to help you 100%. They're not perfect.
So
and they are going to make your computer slower and crappier.
The final question that we get all the time is, Rim Scott, I was dumb and I got a virus or whatever. How do I get rid of it? And forget the past. In the present, the current state of the world, the real answer is you cannot, because due to rootkits and the way modern viruses work, once a computer has ever been compromised, you can never, ever trust that that computer is wholly free of compromises again for the rest of its life unless you reformat and reinstall.
Yeah, I mean, you can trust it, to do some things. Like, you can trust it to go to dig and to load dig properly. But you can never 100% trust that software on that machine ever again. You can always, it might be sending all your personal information out. It might be key logging. You have no idea. There's no way to know. I mean, your spy bots and your, ad-awares.
Those work very poorly compared to the way they used to.
Your ClamAv. You can clean the computer up to a certain degree using tools. And if you're really lucky, maybe you only got one little virus and you happen to have a tool that's really good at getting rid of that virus, and it might make you perfectly clean. But there's no way to know you're perfectly clean.
It's kind of like,
there is no way to know.
You can monitor your traffic for months and months and run all these things, and if you see anything, you can prove, yep, I was still infected. But you can never be sure about that computer again. So if you care about your data at all, if you've ever been infected, back your shit up. And when I say back your shit up, I mean back up non-executable files.
Yep, back up your MP3s and your JPEGs and whatever.
And that's it.
Back it up to like DVDs or something.
Any program on your computer is suspect for the rest of that computer's life until you reinstall.
And then, even when you back up all those files, make sure that after you reinstall, before touching any of those files, you sort of get them in on a read-only basis, and you scan them with every fucking scan thing you have to make sure that there's nothing attached to them. Because there could be.
The answer is reinstall. That's the only way to know, and I'm sad, and that's it. And in a corporate environment, that's the only solution.
Imaging.
If you're infected, fuck you, your computer's gone.
Yep. So if you actually something I recommend to make it, like I'm at the point where I do a lot of my stuff on the web. I use Google for as much as possible. It used to really matter. Like being at school on the school computer sucked because all my stuff was on my computer at home on my hard drive.
Yep, I carried a zip disk around and I had my Samba shares that worked most of the time.
Yep.
It wasn't good enough.
It wasn't good enough. Nowadays, do as much as you can on the web. Use a thumb drive. Have a laptop that helps, but. And that way, it doesn't really matter what computer you're at or what operating system it's running. As long as you have a web browser and a connection to the internet, it's like I'm at home almost, no matter where I am. At home, I'm still slightly more at home.
Theoretically, if I go to any computer, I've got Steam, I could just get all my Steam games anywhere and play them.
Yeah. If it used to be like when I had to reformat, it was like, oh, now I have to reinstall all those applications. Now, I'm like using a clean install of Windows with Firefox. And it's as good as me being in my Linux, whatever.
My Windows has all the Windows updates, the drivers for my shit, Firefox, the Acrobat Reader, and Steam. And those are the only pieces of... Well, I have Audacity for backup emergency, but I've never used it.
Yeah. So if you sort of arrange yourself into a position where you are not reliant on sort of desktop applications, you can I can reformat the Windows today, and it's so little effort because it's no different. It doesn't matter to me. So if there's a virus and it's not going to be a hassle for me to reformat because that's the kind of computing environment I use is one that's not dependent on the operating system or very many local applications, reformatting's no problem. So viruses, who cares? Reformat, end of story. Who cares? Also, of course, if you use Linux or even Mac or anything that's not Windows, yes, whatever, people argue, oh, less people use it. That's why there's less viruses for it.
We're not even going to touch on that argument.
I'm not even going to make all those arguments. Those arguments could go on for 2 episodes. The reality is, if you use the other operating systems besides Windows, you can be stupider and also be much safer. It's pretty much almost impossible to get some sort of spyware or virus.
Short of downloading questionable code, which there isn't that much of, and running it on your Linux box with root permission, there is almost no way to compromise. You could try to compromise your Linux box and you'd have a little bit of trouble. You'd have to know what you were doing.
Yeah, and even Vista, is a lot better than Windows XP. It's pretty hard to get Vista to have bad stuff on it without saying yes, 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 yes when the evil thing tries to do its bidding.
Yep. So if you're really worried about security and viruses and all that, and you're not going to switch to Linux or a Mac, get Vista. There's no reason not to, and you'll thank yourself because it's a lot more secure.
Anything. Don't trust anything. Every program that you aren't 100% sure about is evil. They are all
send
evil.
you a file, don't open it until you have verified that it's me. And even then, think, do I really trust that RIM character 100%? Would I trust him with the ability to see every single thing on my hard drive and find out that I'm into furry scat porn?
Yeah.
Or whatever you're into.
Or would you trust him not to download a bunch of furry scat porn onto your computer to frame you?
And not even would I trust him to fuck me. You also have to think, would I trust the person who is sending me this file to know enough about computers to not have been infected themselves and then be passing it on to me through stupidity?
Trust absolutely nobody, and you'll be safe. And you won't need to waste your stupid computer's resources on antiviruses. You won't need to reformat so often. You won't need to worry if you just don't trust shit. Everyone is out to put evil things on your computer. Everyone.
So, all that aside, we have an announcement to make about the show, and that sometime in the next month or two, we're not entirely sure when, but we'll get to that.
Oh, good call. I totally forgot.
We're going to do something that we did a long time ago that was super awesome, and a lot of people liked it, where we did a question show. You all sent us your questions about us, and we answered them, honestly, for about an hour and change. And we're going to do that again, but a little bit differently. It's going to be per episode. So if you have any questions about science, technology, computers, Linux, anything at all related to technology and science, send it to us, either by email or, more importantly, I'd rather you join the forum and post it there. Sometime tonight, I'm going to make a thread about it. And sometime in the future, once we have enough good questions, we're going to do a Monday show that is nothing but us answering your questions.
Now, here are some guidelines, because I'm going to be honest with you. I am not going to answer crappy questions. A crappy question is basically as good as no question. So here are some guidelines if you want your question to actually be answered on the show. Number 1, make your question clear and concise. I got to know what you're asking, be able to give an answer. Don't be like ramble, and then I don't know what you're asking.
Don't be.
I'm not even going to like try to figure it out. I'm just not going to answer it.
Don't be the don't tase me bro guy.
Yes. Number 2, keep it kind of short. If you write like an essay with a question at the end, no. We don't want to hear what you have to say. It's you want to hear what we have to say.
Yeah, don't
So
try
just-
to impress us with your 4 paragraphs of Linux knowledge before you ask your question.
Just ask the question. Keep it short because I have to read your question on the air. And if your question is 2 sentences, I'm a lot more likely to just read your question.
Number the next. If your question can be answered trivially through Google and does not require clarification beyond the first few links on Google, don't ask. We're not going to answer. You could have answered it well before we do this show.
Yes, don't ask us something you can answer yourselves, or a question that is just a piece of information. Ask us something that requires, like a try to make them more like discussion topics than like, don't ask what's the best thing. Well, that's, I guess, a good discussion topic.
Don't ask us, how do I set up a LAMP server? Ask us, I'm new to Linux. How would I go about learning how to set up a LAMP server? There's a big difference.
Yeah. Don't say, what's the command to show me what files are in a directory? Ask,
What's a file?
yeah. Ask, what are some really clever commands you know? Because that's a discussion
Now,
topic.
these can also be personal questions related to science and technology or Monday night. Pretty much, the board is open, and if you ask a smart question, you're going to get a smart answer, or at least a sarcastic answer.
Yeah, and if you ask a bad question, we will ignore you.
Yes, it's not like, if you ask a really dumb question, we're going to make fun of you.
We
and it'll be
might make
awesome.
fun of you if it's that kind of question, so try to avoid that if you don't want
All right,
that.
let me put it this way. If your question's smart, we'll answer it. If it's dumb, we'll answer it snarkily. If your question is lame, we're not going to answer it.
Yeah. So think about the questions you're sending in carefully and send them in, because we want quantity, but quality isn't going to, quality is going to get through the sieve.
I recommend that you go into the forums and read the thread where these questions are posted and don't duplicate questions. And also, if you post them publicly like that, you're going to get a lot more discussion and maybe follow-on questions before we get around to answering them, and you might get a lot more interesting discussion as a result.
Yeah. Oh, and just so people, don't like try to avoid doing this, if, the forum goes and answers your question, because you post a question in the forum like tomorrow and then people start answering it in like another thread or something, if it's still a good question, we'll still answer it on the show because I have a feeling we're going to need all the good questions we can get to fill out an hour.
Yes, plus as rockin' as our forums are, you're a very small minority of the listenership.
Yep.
By the same token, this is a good chance if you haven't joined our forums to join them, because I got to admit, I hang out in my own forum, something I never thought I would do in my whole life.
I thought I might do that one day.
Well, but our forums are actually cool. Even if I wasn't doing the show, I would hang out there, and I'm not just saying that. This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontroadcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geek Nights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.